Have you ever felt during the night like you were being watched, like you were being spied on, even though there was no one else but you in the room? Sometimes you might also feel a draft, a breath on the back of your neck, or maybe a strange little noise that wakes you up in the middle of the night. I know where it comes from. I know who's doing all that. I called him the man of the night. One night, after a party at some friend's place, with plenty of drinks, I went to bed quite late. It was probably around 2 a.m. I don't really remember exactly, but I was really exhausted. I had a lot of alcohol in my blood, so I collapsed into bed, and I fell asleep pretty quickly. I woke up soon after, thinking I heard someone whisper my name, Arthur. I woke up and instantly felt like someone was watching me. I felt intense shivers at that moment. I scanned the room, dimly lit by the glow of the moon coming from outside, but there was nothing. Then I quickly realized I was still drunk and half asleep. It was likely just my imagination or a dream. I closed my eyes, hoping to fall asleep quickly. After just 10 minutes, I felt someone sit at the end of my bed. I can't explain it, but I felt the sheets pulled down and clearly heard the mattress sink at the end of the bed. I could swear I felt something on my feet. I jumped violently. I quickly reached out to feel for my bedside lamp, but just before I found it, I heard it again very close, this time right next to my ear. Surrender. There was no one in the room. I was alone. I rubbed my head. Yet I was sure I had felt something at the end of my bed, that I had heard someone whisper in my ear. But there was nothing. I got up, still half dazed. I had no intention of sleeping anymore. I remembered very clearly thinking that it was once again some kind of waking dream. I'm prone to sleep paralysis, so that thought was legitimate. Even if I wasn't fully asleep, I could have been between sleep and wakefulness. What could have caused that? But I couldn't explain the whispers I heard clearly while I was completely awake. But I quickly blamed it on the alcohol. I had a couple cups of coffee and waited for daylight. Then I fell asleep on the couch, without thinking again about what I had just experienced. A week passed with nothing happening. A week I slept well, despite still feeling watched. A week of calm, until that night, when he showed up again. I hadn't had anything to drink, not even all week. I went to bed around 10 o'clock, and once again, it was around 2 in the morning that I was awakened. Unsure what woke me, I quickly scanned the room. There, between the bars at my bed's end, I saw his face. I was paralyzed by fear and couldn't move. His face was pale, drawn toward a dark blue, like the skin of a corpse. He had no eyes. Instead, there were 2 empty holes. His mouth twisted into a frightening grimace, as if filled with immense rage. After what felt like hours, I could finally move. I pulled my feet back just as the creature darted under the bed. I had time to hear it scratching against the slats of my bed frame, just before I reached the switch on my bedside lamp. After turning on the light, the whole room is plunged into a deathly silence again. Sweating and panicked, my heart racing, I struggled to get up and quickly moved away from the bed. I grabbed my baseball bat from between the wardrobe and wall. I held it tight, but I was shaking with panic. I yelled something like, "Get out from under there," but I can't recall exactly. But I felt that there was no one there, that I was alone once again. I bent down from a distance to look under the bed, too scared to get closer. And just as I expected, there was no one there. No creature, no monster was underneath. I searched the closet, every other room in the house, but there was nothing. Once again, I couldn't sleep that night. I stayed up watching my favorite show and finally fell asleep around 6 a.m. holding the baseball bat. The next day, I looked online for disorders that cause nighttime hallucinations. But apart from sleep paralysis or night terrors, which can be triggered by taking certain medications, I didn't find anything concrete. None of that applied to me. Still, I saw and felt it. So I asked myself the question. I wondered how I could prove that all this wasn't just a product of my imagination. And I found only one way to check it. I quietly slid under the bed in daylight. I checked the slats of my bed base, since the creature had scratched them, thinking it might have left marks, and it had. 2 long, deep scratches were on 2 of the slats of my bed base. I came out from under the wine rack. Again, I foolishly dismissed it, telling myself the marks were probably there before, or caused by something else. After moving in here, I still took the problem seriously. I set up a camera in front of my bed, just like in Paranormal Activity. I spent 2 days sleeping at some friend's place nearby, so I let the camera run for 2 whole nights, making sure to change the battery in between. Then I came back from my weekend and watched the tapes. Out of the 2, over more than 16 hours of footage, there was nothing. The camera's microphone didn't even pick up the slightest sound, except for the constant ticking of my wall clock. I felt reassured, since I often felt watched and disturbed in my sleep after experiencing those horrible things. I comforted myself, insisting it was just my imagination. That very evening, I decided to sleep in my room again. I still left the camera on all night, just in case. I slept peacefully that night and woke up feeling great. So I made myself a coffee and decided to watch the entire videotape on my tablet. And what I saw chilled me to the bone. I had just finished setting up my camera under the bed. I could see a hand with long, thin fingers sticking out from under it. I switched off the bedside lamp and quickly fell asleep. Then, I saw it come out from under the bed. He stood right above me, his head leaning forward, his face just a few inches from mine. I noticed he had long hair, and it was almost falling onto my face. He stayed there, standing next to me, leaning over my face, sometimes whispering things I couldn't understand. Sometimes I would move in my sleep, like turning to the other side, but he kept staring at me without moving an inch. He did that all night, for hours, until around 6 in the morning. His head slowly turned to the camera. I could clearly see his horrible grin and empty eye sockets. He then slowly walked toward it. I could clearly see him getting closer and closer. I was about to turn off the tablet when he whispered this sentence, "I'm watching you all sleep," and then he bent down slowly until he disappeared from the camera. I saw myself yawn as I woke up, just a few minutes later. Then the video stopped by itself. Still shocked by what I saw, I needed to save the video to a USB drive. So I wanted to copy everything, to show it to someone I know, maybe a ghost specialist or similar. But the file was corrupted. I couldn't open it anymore. Even worse, the original file from the camera also had a problem. The screen was black, with no sound. As if all the evidence of his existence had just disappeared. I'm telling you this today because of what he whispered in the video. He clearly said, "I'm watching all of you sleep." And that made me realize something. At least that's what I think. I was fortunate, or perhaps unfortunate, to notice it. I think that's why it appears more often, and isn't afraid to show itself to me. That's why, by the way, I'm telling you all this. If one night you hear whispers in your sleep, or you feel a cold breath, if you feel like you're being watched, above all, don't open your eyes. Keep them closed, ignore it. Because if you open them, if you try to look for it, you'll definitely find it. And then it won't hesitate to show itself to you, and it will be there every night, watching you sleep. I watch all of you sleep.